So, let's give it up for your CEO and chairman, Mr. Bob Hamrick.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Thank you very much. Good morning, good morning. That puts a lot of pressure on me, doesn't it? I mean, we're being recorded, we've got all this stuff, and I've got this fabulous group that are looking at me with excitement and enthusiasm and interest to hear every word I have to say, right? Right. Okay, good. So before I go into the main event, kind of tying to the main event, you know, there is a company out there that is leveraging the fact that you're taking listings, and every time you take a listing, it seems as if, as according to Steve Hoops, they're sending you some information, and that information is, do you want to use all this marketing? So there's a company called Visual Show's complete marketing system. It's plug and play. You can do all this stuff, and I'm like, guess what? We're already doing all this stuff. So how many of you have gotten these emails after you take a listing? Steve was like just asking, hey, is this what we're doing now? Is that what it's called? And the answer is no. Don't click yes because you already got all this stuff. So give me a one clap. Okay, good. So 3 weeks ago, I think it might have been a little bit longer ago, at a sales meeting, and in all three offices we were talking about some of the successes that we're experiencing. We were talking about the end of the year. We were asking how many of you are excited about the balance of the year. It was about a third left. And how many of you plan on having the best third of the year ever and closing out 2014 in a great way? And so we talked about some of the people that were doing business and all the rest and giving them one claps, and it was all exciting. And after each of those meetings at all three of our offices, I had some other agents come to me and say, hey, you know, it's great that we're having our listings selling all the rest, but there are a portion of our listings that are not selling. And we would like to hear more about the kinds of things that we can be doing to cause our listings to sell. And so it was hearing that consistently from all three of the offices that caused me to commit to putting the following presentation together to share with you some of the ideas that we should incorporate in order to get our listings sold. Because the opposite of a sold listing is a what? Expired. Is an expired listing. Anyone in this room ever have an expired listing? Wow, this is good to know. Anyone in this room ever have a listing? So not having an expired listing is a fabulous thing. As markets change, the propensity to have an expired listing increases. If inventory grows, and buyer count changes. So as those things happen, it becomes more and more important that we do a lot of right things to cause all of our listings to sell. Because for those of you that have had an expired listing, does it feel good, yes or no? How do you feel when you have an expired listing? Typically, pretty bad. Normally, we're ashamed about the fact that we had this listing and it didn't sell. I repeat the statement and the circumstance that Molly talks about a lot when she was making the conversion. Well, actually, when she first started in the business, she considered herself to be a buyer's agent. She held open houses, she did all those kinds of things. And a listing opportunity just happened on her lap. And she admits that she didn't know what she was doing. She went and took a listing, and when she was walking out of the house, she knew this much. She said, "This will never sell." And as she was walking out of the house, she just basically knew that she didn't do her job right. And then she also never got the direction of staying in touch with the client. And so she never stayed in touch. And you know, there's this point where it's like, well, geez, I should have called them a week ago. I should call them, and I didn't. And then when you get to a point, it's like, okay, now I'm never going to call them. I've made that decision, and now we just need to wait until it expires. And then I need to pick the best time after midnight to go to the house to take the lockbox off. And Molly tells this story better than I do, but the bottom line is, if you haven't been there, good for you. But she has, and many other agents have, where we have a scenario where we're not sold on our own properties, we don't do the things necessary to stay in touch with the seller, and the ultimate result is an expired listing, and that expired listing causes frustration on the part of the seller and obviously on ourselves as well. So our goal is for you all that have never had this experience to never have this experience. The topic of the session is your listing sold, but actually, more appropriately stated, it's this: Servicing the seller from the lead to the closing and beyond, because that's truly what we need to do, what we have to be committed to doing, and if we do, the rest of it truly will take care of itself. If we have service as first and foremost as what we want to deliver, then the end result will absolutely be there. So let me start with a simple question. You know that listings don't sell sometimes, and you probably have ideas, I know you do, as to why they don't. So talk to me. Why is it that some listings don't sell? What are the reasons? Okay, so price, get it. What else? Location can sometimes affect it. What else? Condition of the property. Access of what has to be done to show the property. Good. Any other items? The market conditions can sometimes affect them. Anything else? Poor pictures, absolutely. The marketing side of it can certainly impact it. So you guys are accurate, and you know the things that affect sales. And ultimately, it's a minute list, and it's a finite list. These are the things that cause a property to not sell. And if we're able to take it around the opposite way, correctly, these are the things that will cause a property to sell. One is the condition of the home, the other is access, and you've both mentioned them. Condition of the property will affect whether a home sells, yes or no. Absolutely it can. Because if it's not looking good, if it's not comparatively effective against other properties, it's not going to sell. From an access standpoint, it's a great home. All things are super about it. However, you can never get into it. Tenant-occupied properties can oftentimes have challenges with regard to access. And the home should sell, but we can never get into it. Unless it is such a tremendous opportunity for purchase where buyers will make offers subject to seeing it. That does not happen often. So access is absolutely on the list. Location is on the list. Obviously, a property that backs up to a busy street can be impacted in price and impact the sale of the property, yes or no? Totally. So when we are doing our market analysis, etc., on a property, these things are important to consider when we are discussing that with a seller. Now, one of the things that wasn't mentioned, because in this market that we're in, terms are not as much of an option, but in some situations, terms can affect the sale of a property. There's some condo projects that can get financing. Do you think it affects the ability to sell the home, yes or no? Of course it does. And there are also terms that will cause homes to be so attractive that they will be sold regardless of some of the other points. Because sometimes if an owner owns a property free and clear and they say, hey, I just want to invest my equity and I'd like to invest it in the subject property, and if someone came up with $10,000, I'd carry the whole balance for a low interest rate. It's better than I could get in the bank. Those kinds of terms will cause a property to sell. So financing is obviously important, and price is what you said first. And I know why you said it first. Because it truly is the most important factor in getting a property sold, but it is not the only factor. And I can absolutely guarantee you that it is not what a seller wants to hear. Yes or no? For sure it's not what a seller wants to hear. But if we have a property that is in poor condition, can price make up for it? If we have a property that has poor access, can price make up for it? What about if it's in a poor location? Absolutely, terms, etc. Price is the great equalizer. Price is the great equalizer when it comes right down to it. Well, I only want to show it at noon on these days. You better make the price so good that people line up outside at noon on Tuesdays to see that one property. That's the kind of thing that makes the difference, is price. But from a seller perspective, that's not what they want to hear first off, right? So these are the reasons why properties don't sell from a professional's perspective. But if we're going to be having conversations with the property owner, we should understand what it is from their perspective. What is their perspective? Why do they think the property hasn't sold? The agent? We're not doing anything? Open houses. Ultimately, you said that too. It's these three things, and they're all one. Us. It's the agent, or the agent's company, or the lack of marketing that the agent and their company provided. Would you agree with that? Is it the price? Generally speaking, in the seller's mind. No. Typically, not. This is fundamentally important for us to recognize because all of this is sales. And when we have a seller whose listing we have taken that has not sold after a period of time, we should be asking ourselves these questions and reminding ourselves of these things because we have a presentation to make to that seller ultimately. So, in order for us to prepare for this type of a presentation, I believe we have to go back to the original time of this opportunity and ask ourselves some questions. The question one is, where did this opportunity come from? Was it a for sale by owner? Was it an expired listing? Is it an SOI? Is it a referral from somebody else? Where does this opportunity come from? Does that affect how you're going to present to them, yes or no? It better. It better, because when someone's referred to you, you should be showing respect to them and you should be able to recognize that your presentation might be a little bit different in that situation. For sale by owner, expired, etc. What promises or mistakes were made at the listing time? How many of you made promises to a seller at the time of listing? We all do. Say yes. Say yes.
Yes.
What mistakes were made at the time of listing? You better ask yourself these questions and have the answers. Because oftentimes in the listing presentation, statements are made. And when we make those statements, I'm gonna statements, then we better be prepared to talk about what we did to I'm gonna. If there were mistakes made with regard to not discussing or not talking about, that's important to consider as well. What's the motivation of the seller? We should remind ourselves of what that motivation is, and we should be prepared to confirm that motivation at some point. Has motivation ever changed with your sellers, yes or no? Have they gone from being motivated to not motivated? Have they gone from being not motivated to motivated? It all can change. So it's important for us to recognize we have withdrawn listings from sellers that were motivated and turned into not motivated, and that's okay. Better to withdraw that listing than to be playing the game of trying to get it sold because a conversation is uncomfortable to be had. The seller's uncomfortable to bring it up perhaps, or you're uncomfortable to bring it up to them. But better to withdraw it if motivation changes to the lack. What suggestions were made regarding marketability? Do you make suggestions when you go on a listing presentation, yes or no? What type of suggestions do you make? Huh? Clean this house. So you make suggestions with regard to perhaps organization, cleaning it up. What other suggestions do you make? Staging, decluttering, absolutely. We make suggestions. We better make suggestions. What suggestions do you make in a perfect house? Turn the lights on. Leave it exactly the way that it is. You better make suggestions absolutely every time and recognize that they're paying you for that. So, as I have mentioned in the past, I have listed homes that were in perfect condition. And they were presenting to me as the listing agent in perfect condition. And I simply go through and make sure that this is not an accident. It's not an accident that these blinds are wide open right now, right? It's not an accident that we're in the middle of the summer, you've got the air conditioner down to 70 degrees, and you've got the fireplace on. That's not an accident, right? And all these different things that you've done to stage this property today in presentation to me is exactly what I would recommend when we're going to have a showing. So they want to know that you recognize if that's the case, and if not, those are the conversations we need to have. Because the condition of a property will affect the sales price. Say amen. And if that is the case, Our job is to get the sellers the most money possible. That's your responsibility. And if you have no information, no insights, no suggestions to make to a seller, then shame on you, because this is your job. It's not your job to say, this is the price. It's your job to say, this is how it's all going to work. It's a holistic approach to getting your property sold. Condition is what's going to get them excited for you, because you're giving ideas that are going to cause them to get the most money possible. What suggestions did you make? Why am I suggesting that you ask yourself this question? Because we want to ensure that they were done or not. So if I made a list of things, hey, have you done this, have you done this, have you done this, then now part of the reason why your home may not have sold is because you didn't do the list that I suggested to you, or you just did it. Yes or no? You with me? Okay, so these are questions that I'm asking myself with regard to why the property hasn't sold. Was the net sheet completed at list price or probable sales price? Have we beat this into your head enough? Yes or no? So every time you take a listing, you never fill out the net sheet at list price, right? Even if list price is a good price, right? We always fill out the net sheet at a price at least a little less than the listed price. Because generally speaking, what most agents do if they fill out a net sheet at list price is they show a net sheet to a seller, they get to this number, and what they are saying without saying is, let me show you a number that you will never, ever get. Right here. You see that? Think about it. Embrace it. Get it in your head. You will never get this number. It will be less than that. Why would we do it? Why would we set ourselves up for that kind of failure? It makes no sense. The easiest time to get a seller to sign a net sheet is at the listing time, not at the sale time. And if we have any challenges over it, all we have to do is say, look, I understand when I leave your home today, this is the price. This is the only price that I know, your listed price. But I have an obligation to you, based on what the market is telling us, to share with you what the market is saying your home will probably sell for. You don't have to sell it for this price. Absolutely not. I'm just sharing with you what the market is saying. So sign here, please. At least they are signing something that is realistic. And now when you go back on an offer presentation, this is what I told you when we put it on the market. It's right here. And look at this offer. It's even higher than that. That's what we want to do. We want to constantly under-promise and over-deliver to our sellers to cause them to absolutely love us. As the point was, from lead to listing to sale and beyond. We want them to continue to send us business, and if we're doing our job right, then they will. And finally, the question we have to answer is, why hasn't it sold? How many of you have had a listing? Oh, you're not going to answer this. Not had a listing. Yeah, okay. I'll continue the question. Very seldom, very, very seldom will we have a listing that doesn't sell for which we are like oblivious as to the why. Yes? We should almost always know the why. Now, there may be rare occasions where you don't have the answer, and that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for you not to have the answer. So get with your friends in the office, get with the management, get with others to say, I'm a little stumped here. What's your thoughts? What's your suggestions? What's your advice? Because oftentimes it will be obvious to a third eye, to somebody else that is looking at it to say, hey, well, have you considered this, and how did you come up with this price, etc. Are you with me? Very important that you know the why, because they're paying us to know the why. And we're going to have a discussion on this, and they're going to have to feel confident in you. So, our listing presentation. It's the roadmap for where we're going. It's the roadmap for how we share with sellers what we're going to be doing. And that listing presentation, the fundamental of it, the real crux of our listing presentation is all around our seller services guarantee, right? And our seller services guarantee 22 specific things that we do to help a seller get their property sold. And inside this seller services guarantee is everything. It's everything. I will challenge you to do these 22 things and show me a listing that doesn't sell. You will not be able to. If you look at the roadmap, you present it effectively, one, you're going to get the listing. And then you do it, it's going to sell. So I generally believe, which is great to see from all of you that haven't had an expired listing, I don't think you should have an expired listing. We shouldn't have expired listings if we're doing our job right at the listing presentation. If we're saying the right things, if we're preparing effectively, if we're doing all that stuff, we shouldn't have an expired listing. And we're going to have a potential for an expired listing if we don't do our job beyond it. It is changing in the marketplace where the 2-week listings are not as frequent. And there are some that are selling in 2 weeks. You take the listing, you might think it's going to sell in 2 weeks, and you still have it. And it might take further due diligence. It might take further effort. And the difference between a good listing and a not so good listing, I believe, is time and effort. So we have to be committed to these types of conversations and working with our sellers until their property sells. Our seller services guarantee explains everything that we're going to do and gives you the roadmap of what needs to happen. And inside this seller services guarantee is the foundation for continued conversation, right? It says that I am going to stay in touch with you and share market information with you as it comes up. And it is one of the best sources for closing on the listing. We talk about these 22 points, and I come right back to point number 15. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, as important as all these items are, the one item that I think is most important is item number 15. Because one of the areas where I do get a lot of business is from sellers that had their property on the market with another agent and it didn't sell. And I ask every single one of them, what are you least pleased with? And the response is, they listed my home and I never heard from them since. And my guarantee here eliminates that from even being a possibility. In fact, I call all my sellers on Friday afternoons. Is Friday afternoon a good time for you? Or say no. No. When would be a better time? Saturday. Saturday morning. If I was able to make it Saturday morning, no problem. Great. We'll do it on Saturday mornings. What are they saying when they say yes? They're saying yes. They're saying yes to listing with you. They're not saying yes for communication. So the bottom line is, this sets us up for being able to get the listing and also for staying in touch with the seller until the property sells. Price reductions are not a phone call away. Why do I say that? Why do I say they're not a phone call away? Huh? Good for you. It should be set over the phone, but it should not be done over the phone. Now, I say that, and I know that some of you have been effective at getting price reductions over the phone. So it's up to you to decide how you do it. But I can say this with confidence. Price is one of the biggest challenges with most sellers. And unless we have really laid the foundation effectively with the seller at the time of listing, where we said, I'm uncomfortable with this number, I want you to know that. In a week or two, we're going to need to have a discussion and reduce the price, and they say, okay, 2 weeks from now, fine. That might be acceptable, but I'm going to tell you on an ongoing basis, we should be scheduling face-to-face meetings with our sellers to give them the information that really thoroughly updates them on what's happening in the market. So, price reductions are not a phone call away. We need to get together to discuss a price reduction. Is that what we say when we get on the phone with them? No. Because I don't even want to talk about price. It might not be price. We should not resort to price automatically because the seller is not going to resort to price automatically. So if we understand what the seller is going to say, then we have to talk about all the other stuff in addition to price. So this is not the statement on the phone. This might be closer to the statement on the phone. I'd like to schedule a convenient time when I can personally update you on the market and marketing to this point and get your direction as we move forward. Is that what we really want? I want direction from them. What kind of direction? A price reduction. But that we want to have communication and direction and work together to get to where we need to be. And I think that says it a lot better rather than to say we need to get together and talk about pricing. Because they're not going to be excited about that conversation. I think they are going to be more interested in this conversation. Now, back in 1984, there was a real estate agent that moved to Las Vegas. His name was Joe DeSimone. Not DeRaphael, Joe DeSimone. Joe DeSimone, great guy, mastered for sale by owners. Built a lot of business around for sale by owners. By the way, this same Joe DeSimone is buying the Railroad Pass. Yeah, the hotel. You know where he started from? Listing for sale by owners. So do that and you'll buy a hotel. He had a different approach on his conversations in scheduling a call. He would make regular phone calls to his sellers to give them an update. And part of that statement that he had was more of an offense approach. He took offense with the conversation with the seller. And this is, in essence, what he said. I'm getting a lot of showings and offers on my other listings. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of activity we've had on your property so far. We need to get together. When would be a good time? What's different about that? It's a reality check. What's different about it? Putting it on the property, putting it on the seller. So if I don't have this conversation, who else will? They're going to have it with me. They're going to have this conversation with me if I don't have it with them. If I don't beat them to it, they're going to say, we're a little disappointed so far. You're disappointed? I'm really disappointed. So they get off the phone, and the wife says, who was that on the phone? It was Joe DeSimone, and he was pissed. Yeah, and that is, are you pissed when your properties don't sell, yes or no? Do you have listings that are selling, yes or no? Yes, and if you take the I out, or if you take, if you take the I and put we in, you're right there. Because if you don't have a listing, we have a bunch of listings. And guess what? We got a lot of listings that are selling. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed that we're not getting the kind of activity that we want on your property. So we need to get together and talk about it. I'm available at 3 o'clock today. Are you? Make sense? Talk about the price reduction and the ammunition that you have available to you to prepare yourself for a fabulous price reduction conversation. Are you ready? Point number 1 is our everyday until it's sold marketing. Now, in our seller services guarantee, those 22 points, one of those points is marketing. And we blow up marketing. And they want to know what you've been doing with regard to your marketing, right or wrong. And we can't say we got to reduce the price. We got to say, here's what's happened, here's what's happened, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing, and ultimately get somewhere else. So what things have we done? We have done a lot already. And it's an update that is necessary to cause our sellers to realize that stuff is happening. By the way, we're recording this, and we'll also get you this entire presentation if you want it. Or if you just want a picture of me, that's cool, thanks. But this is the stuff that is automatic. This isn't you taking dollars out of your pocket. All it is saying, here's what I've done for you so far. I put a sign up. I put it, but you put it up. We've caused you to have a personal website for your property, and here's what's done. Here's the photos, here's the marketing, here's what it looks like in the MLS. All this stuff is updated and provided. And all you have to do is just share it. Weekly inventory report. We don't show the weekly inventory report every week in our sales meetings, but it is updated every single week for you. How many of you grab it every week? Okay, look around. The top listing agents in this office grab it every week. They know where it's at. They grab it. They look at it. They understand it. They internalize the direction of the market. Diane's here. Yes, on Tuesday, when I said before I even shared this, and she can read it, she said exactly the number of homes that were on the market right now. I think it's 8,600. 84, thank you. What do you see over here? And I apologize, it's really small. But what you see is a line going this way. The trend for listing inventory right now is not pretty. It's been going up about 200 listings every single week for quite some time. 6,800 in March was the lowest inventory for the year. We're at 8,400 now. So, we've added 1,500, 2,000 listings on the market. 2,000 more properties are competing with yours now than had we listed it in March. Pretty significant stuff. And all we have to do is grab it and rate it and talk about it. Market updates are what we're providing along with marketing updates. The daily dose. I mentioned to you 2 weeks ago how valuable that daily dose is to me. It helps me understand the direction of our company. It helps me obviously recognize individuals that are doing great business, but it shows me some trends too. And our daily dose, I think you should have several daily doses that you have saved. You should have daily that you will use in different presentations. Some of them will have very few listings. And perhaps I would share that with a buyer to say, hey, inventory, there's still inventory out there, but it's a lot less than it was back in 2011, whenever it was, sorry. You know what I mean? And then there's ones that have a bunch of listings on them. I would show that to a seller listing presentation to say, hey, a lot of properties are currently coming on the market. And then I would have one here, again, you can't see it very well. The prevailing letter here is listing sold. And this is one that has a whole bunch of listings sold on it. And I want to show the seller that business is still happening. We're still selling a lot of our listings. And obviously at the very top is the update. 2,224 listings taken, 2,624 sales made just year to date. So now when we give an update to the seller, as a company, we've already sold just under 3,000 properties so far this year, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So we're active. Things are taking place. Business is still happening to cause them to realize that the market is still good. So our daily dose is very important to incorporate. And then there's a couple of reports, absorption reports that are general, that we provide, and that are specific that you should create. Again, you can't see this, but this is available in IQ Office, and it is an absorption report that breaks down the market by price range. So from $150,000 or less, here's how many homes are on the market in that price range, and here's how many have sold in the last year. Question: if there are 100 homes on the market right now in a particular price range, and 100 homes like it have sold in the last year, how long would it take on average for those 100 homes to be absorbed? Thank you. A year. I was wanting to make it very simple. 1 year. You got 100 homes. In the last 12 months, 100 homes like it have sold. So it'll take, on average, 12 months for all of that inventory to be absorbed if no others come on the market. That's an interesting and informative way of speaking to a seller. This is by price range. So if you go on a listing presentation that's for $3 million or above, I will tell you very clearly that there's probably 4 years of inventory or more on the market like that. And we have to be very cognizant of that. In the $100,000 price range, it's getting absorbed quite quickly. But the green, or sorry, it looks yellow here, that means it's on the increase. So every one of the price categories is on the increase for available inventory. You with me? The next point is the individual absorption report. And we can call it that, but it may not necessarily be absorption. But the listing that you have has general criteria, right? This particular one is a 2,000 square foot home. And this 2,000 square foot home, I'm going into area, zip code, square footage, pool, and age. I'm not so sure that we have to do area and zip code. You might choose one versus the other. Square footage, and we're going in a range. So if the home was built in 1990, I might go 1985 to 5, a few years around. Square footage, I might go 200 on both sides. And because when a buyer comes to us, does the buyer say, I want the Sycamore floor plan of D.R. Horton Homes over there? Do they say that? What do they say? They say, I'm looking for about 2,000 square feet in the Northwest. This is what they tell us. And when they tell us that, these properties fall into the category. So 2 months later, after I've taken a listing, I'm going to have a meeting with the seller. And I'm going to pull this report, and I'm going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's been 2 months since we placed your property on the market. In that period of time, here's how many homes like yours have come on the market. There have been 12 properties. Of those 12 properties that have come on the market, 3 of them have already sold and closed. Of them, 2 of them are in pending. Of them, this are in this status and this is that. This is the update of what's happening. And its properties very similar to yours. So important information to share, and you can do this. It's all available in MLS. All you need to do is know how to search it. Marketing reports. There's a lot of stuff that we provide automatically, if you know where to get it, that updates on your specific listing. This specific listing has had about 500 hits on its LasVegasHomes.com website. So far, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, 500 people have visited your property. Do you know how to find this? Yes. If you don't, figure it out, because it's there. Thanks, Diane. And the home facts. The home facts report allows us to identify how many home facts calls we've had. And you better have called each one of them back and had conversations. To those conversations and to say, this person was interested, this person I actually sold a home to. Unfortunately, they were looking for something different than this property. Whatever it is, what is going on with your home facts updates, because this information is out there. In order for us to get price reductions, we have to talk about everything else before we talk about price reductions. Sellers need to be convinced that all those other items have been addressed. And if we don't, then there's a little mystery and they're going to be a little hesitant to go to price. Trust me. So, got in the real estate business in 1980. Had a bunch of different mentors that I would consider people that were very influential in my life. Mark Masevic was certainly one of them, and Mark Masevic is an unbelievable person when it comes to knowing the market and creating verbiage around the market. And there's a whole bunch of phrases, but I'm only going to share 4 of them with you. But I have incorporated these 4 phrases into my speak. When it's time to have conversations with someone over this type of stuff, this just comes out. One of those statements is more important at the time of listing, but the statement is, I'd rather turn you down now than let you down later. How many of you feel that way from time to time? How many of you articulate it? If you articulate it, that's what's important. So I'd rather turn you down now than wait 3 months from now and have you upset with me because I wasn't firm enough at this time to let you know this. Unless we're prepared to sell our property in this range, or unless we're prepared to fix this up, or unless we're prepared to do these kinds of things, I'd love to represent you, but I think I'd have to turn you down because I know I'd be letting you down later. And I don't want to do that to you. That conversation needs to be had, and that's the phrase for using it. The next is, I'm not responsible for the market, but we have to be responsive to it. Is that reality? Of course, you're not market makers. You don't go out there and say, this home is worth $300,000, it's magically worth $300,000. All you do is collect data and share it and cause sellers to be responsive to that data. So you're not responsible for the market. Don't take it. It's not your market. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not responsible for it, but we have to be responsive to it in order to get our property sold. Make sense? Next, The best marketing in the world will not sell an overpriced property, but it will sell another listing every single day. Every single day, properties are selling as a result of someone's marketing. It's just not necessarily the property that the marketing was intended for. Amen? Can that hit home with a seller when you're talking about the market report? When you're talking about here's how many homes like yours have come on the market and here's how many have already sold? Absolutely, it can come in big time if you know how to speak to it. If you know how to share this kind of information, it can make a big difference. The other is this. Oftentimes sellers say, well, no one has seen our home, so I'm not ready to do anything. I'm not ready to make any adjustments. They haven't even seen it. And whether a property has been seen or not, this is the truth. It's not that your house is being missed by agents and buyers. They're not missing it. The harsh reality is that they are seeing your home every day and choosing, based on competition, not to buy your house. That's the harsh reality, isn't it? So are you prepared to say it? Are you prepared to present it and explain that? Because that's reality. Every single day, 12,000 real estate agents in our local association, 12,000 real estate agents. All of them have a buyer here and there. They're going to the MLS. They're putting in search criteria. And a couple of things are happening. Either your home is coming up or it's not coming up. And if it's not coming up, it's because your criteria doesn't fit the buyer's criteria. Oftentimes, your home is coming up in a lot of people's search. And then they look at it and they say, based on the 5 or 10 properties that are here, I'm going to show this one, and this one, and yours doesn't make that cut. And that's what happens on a daily basis. So it's not that your home is not getting seen. It's that buyers are seeing it every day and are choosing not to either visit it or not to write an offer on it. That's the harsh reality. If we incorporate these kinds of statements into our business and into our conversations, I believe we will be much more effective at having these types of conversations. But the rest of the story is these statements can work at listing time, because we can incorporate the same statements at that time and cause the seller to price the property right up front. Yes? Okay. Have you learned anything so far? Have I just been talking to myself or what? I mean, what? Okay, so this might seem like in summary like you give 2 points, but I got 10 in summary points, so I'm sorry. But in summary, point number 1, it's much better to price right at listing time than to reduce later. Do you agree with that? That is going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to cause you to have those 2-week, 5-day listings if you price it right. The listing presentation, item 15, as I mentioned, is the foundation for the price reduction because it's the commitment to communication. I'm committing to communicate with you on a weekly basis, and what we're going to talk about is what's going on in the marketplace so that you can have all the information to make an intelligent and informed decision. If you've done your job right, there should be no apologies for the need for a price reduction. This is gigantic because oftentimes we're hat in hand, fumbling around, a little uncomfortable. Well, you might want to think about possibly reducing your price. But if you don't want to, it's okay. Do they need to reduce their price or not? And if they do, it's time to have that conversation. And there's no need for an apology. If a price reduction is important, it's important enough for a meeting. And so I encourage you, you know your sellers, you know the circumstances, but generally speaking, if it's important enough for a price reduction, it's important enough for a face-to-face meeting. Preparation, as with everything, is the critical ingredient. You're making a presentation. How many of you wing your listing presentations? None of you do. Vicki. If you wing your listing presentations, you'll have to have a lot of price reduction presentations. The presentation is critically important, and this is one. The listing presentation is the price reduction presentation is a presentation. Sellers will not reduce until all of their options have been exhausted. I absolutely 100% believe this. And if you believe it, then you have to present accordingly. You have to eliminate all the other things. So we've got this whole marketing plan. And here's what we've done. Here's what we've done. Here's what we've done. I've received phone calls from the signs. I've received fact line calls. Your property's been seen 500 times by different buyers interested in a property like this. And guess what? It's still for sale. We've had no offers. We've had 5 showings. My conversation with each of those agents has been consistent. Really nice home, good condition, found something better at a lower price. That's what they've said. I have an obligation to share that information with you, and that's what we're doing right now. What do you think we need to do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Market statistic mastery is essential for effective price reductions, for effective pricing. We have to master the market. We have to know what's going on in the numbers. Debbie Huber and Stan were here last week talking about appraisals. Many of you attended and said it was a fantastic class. And it was, and it is, and it's information like that that's critical. I see over and over and over again agents searching to justify a higher price rather than looking at the information that's right in front of them otherwise. In other words, there's 3 like comparables in the neighborhood. Yeah, but is there anything like it outside of the neighborhood that sold for more? Who cares? What difference does it make? Because an appraiser is not going to use it. They're going to use like comparables. And so whenever possible, you need to stay in the neighborhood. We can always justify a higher or lower price if we go far enough away, but you're not going to be able to overcome an appraiser's position if they're saying we're using like properties in the neighborhood. Words and phrases can be powerful persuaders. And I've shared 4 of them with you, and there's a whole bunch of others, and you may have your own. But recognize the importance of incorporating that into your conversations. The most important ingredient to obtain a price reduction is your confidence and your conviction. That's why I said you have to know why. You have to know why the property hasn't sold. And if you don't know why, you can't go on this appointment yet. Exhaust it. Talk with others, get feedback, and know why the property hasn't sold, and know what needs to be done. Because if you have the confidence and you have the conviction, it's going to come across that way. And if we don't, what ultimately happens is we're fidgety, we're inconsistent, we're not firm in what we're saying, and it will be recognized. It's recognized in the wilderness, and it's recognized in sales. People know if you're not confident in what you're saying. Finally, the difference between manipulation and influence is intent. Why am I saying this as the wrap-up of this presentation? We're trying to instigate change. I'm suggesting it with all of you. But most importantly is this. You're going to be effective at this. You're going to go on listing presentations and you're going to get them priced right. And they're going to sell quickly. And you are going to make money as a result of that. You're going to go on listing presentations and price reduction conversations, and they're going to acquiesce. They're going to reduce their price, and it's going to sell. And as positive as all that is, there's something back here that's saying, who am I really doing this for? Am I doing this to make a commission? I mean, if I get the prices low enough, they're going to sell. Sellers hate the fact that they're reducing prices and they feel like agents are just trying to make a quick commission. So am I operating from integrity when I go on a listing presentation and get a property priced right? And the answer is, it's up to you. It's up to you. If I go on a listing presentation and I've got my stats and I've got my numbers, I know for a fact there is nothing better for the seller than to price that property at market, because market is going to prove itself. Even if it's less than market, the market is going to prove itself. People will stand in line outside an underpriced property to bring it up to market. So better to be underpriced than overpriced, because you will see the results of that. Now, if you believe it's manipulation, if you believe that you're a great salesperson and you can cause people to do things that they should not do, then that's manipulation. If you're effective at causing people to make good, important decisions that are in their best interest, then you're influential and you have influence on others. And if you have influence on others, it's a gift, and it's a gift that should be treated with respect, but also that intent is what makes the whole difference. You're helping people move on with their lives. You're helping people do better things and get to better places, and you're responsible for that. So the difference between manipulation and influence is intent. What is our intent in causing it to happen? So you're going to be great at this. You're going to be able to get price reductions. You're going to be able to list your properties, get them sold, and all the rest. Realize that it truly is in the best interest of your clients that you build your skills in these areas. Questions? Questions of the information that we shared, questions of anything that we discussed this entire time on pricing the property right, on servicing the seller until closing and beyond. Going once, going twice? Natasha.
Bob, you've shown a full report of everything you have done here to market our property. You've shown us how people look online and reports and look at our property, everything else. You reduced the price last month by 10,000.
Yep.
You have to reduce it again by 10,000. Can you help us in reducing it?
Well, you don't have to reduce it again. It's my suggestion that you reduce it again based on what the market is saying. And so the reason that, if I recall, Natasha, when we met the first time, didn't you have other agents that you were conversing with? I think there were, didn't you have 2 other agents? And you hired me, why? And that's what I am intending to do, and that's why I set this meeting to meet with you in person, to share with you this entire information. And so, to answer your question, no, I will not participate in that, because you're not planning on sharing your equity with me, are you? Because so far from what I see here in this net sheet, you're going to make $50,000 when you sell your home. You're not planning on giving me that. And I don't expect it. I do expect to be compensated for my job, and I think I'm doing a good job for you by coming here and sharing this information with you. So how would you like to proceed? Thank you. 10,000? Other questions, other thoughts, concerns, how to, when to, what to, anything else? Okay, so important stuff. You asked for it, you got it. It's recorded because of all the different topics that we have had before. This, in my opinion, is one that should go into the archives and should be available for you to reach into next time you have a price reduction conversation or process that you need to go through. So we will be sending it to you. You'll have access to it and be able to watch it to remind yourself of the kinds of things that we need to do. This really is a small amount of all the different things that can take place, and we'll continue to update you on the other things that we can be doing to cause our properties to be priced right and to get them sold. So thank you all for being here. 2014. Bring those listings in the door. That's correct. See ya.